It's easier to work with this AI than it is with my creative team. In this video, I want to talk about the single biggest threat artificial intelligence poses to the church communicator. If you're a creative, you've likely heard a lot about artificial intelligence recently, whether it be Midjourney with visuals and images, whether it be ChatGPT with writing and coding and incredible things like that. The artificial intelligence era is here. Now, I recognize that a lot of these tools aren't ready for mainstream use just yet, but they are presenting some really clear examples of where we're headed in the future. I was watching a video recently on TikTok, and there were some really cool insights that were being shared, but something unspoken stood out to me more than anything else. Next week, I'm going to be doing a video on 5 facts about the future of artificial intelligence. This is where I think things are going. These are some of the real ramifications that I see for the creative. But I wanted to emphasize one more than all the rest. That is this: artificial intelligence isn't rude. In this TikTok video, the guy was creating code so that he could drop it into a 3D animation software and basically have an animation generated via code-driven input. And there were some changes that needed to be made. The first round of code didn't work the way that it needed to. And so he said, I went back to the code and I typed in, this is what's happening. It's not working right. And then the artificial intelligence bot wrote back to him, here are some of the things to consider as to why this may not be working. Now, that may sound like a really minor interaction, but as a church communicator, I have not seen that happen very often. I have been an executor, and I have been rude to people. I have managed a team. And as I've managed a team, I have seen emotions overtake rationality when it comes to some of these interactions. I have consulted with churches that are wrestling with the health of their creative team. And you guessed it, all of these things keep surfacing when I have these conversations. If you're a grumpy creative, you're going to be breeding unhealthiness in your organization. But your organization doesn't really have a lot of options. They could go through the process of performancing you out, putting you on a performance improvement plan, having hard conversations, eventually letting you go from the organization. It's complicated, it's expensive, and to be honest with you, a lot of times it's gray. Sometimes ministry leaders do have irrational requests. I'm just going to say it. Sometimes what they're asking for isn't possible. The problem, though, is that we as creatives often will just internalize those requests, and we won't have the conversation to say, here are some of the problems with that request. We won't lean into the conversation. Functionally, we won't lead as we have these conversations with ministry leaders. We just become frustrated, become grumpy, and say, ministries ask for stupid stuff. Ministry leaders are just expecting things that are impossible. Well, part of that is because we haven't helped them see the other side of that conversation. And that's what's fascinating about this interaction with ChatGPT. The chatbot responded with guidance. It guided the user toward a better solution. As Christians, we should be doing this in our day-to-day relationships, but specifically in the context of church communications, if we create an interface that's so complicated to use, now there is a low friction, easy to assimilate into the organization and into the workflow solution that replaces us. It's now easier to work with something else other than the creative that's on the church staff. There are a lot of problems with that, and I want to talk a little bit more next week about some of the theological implications, some of the things that we need to reconcile in terms of where we belong as created in God's image versus a bot spit this out for us. There are a lot of layers to the conversation, but this one was particularly poignant to me because it's a common problem that creatives struggle with. So as you think through how to grow as a creative, really wrestle with this idea of what is your user interface? How difficult are you to work with? How combative are you when a change comes? How disagreeable are you when you don't like an idea that you need to move forward with? What does it look like for you to take really practical steps toward reflecting the fruit of the Spirit more in our day-to-day interactions, even when you don't like the things that are being requested of you? That's going to be a real opportunity for growth, probably for anyone watching this video. Even for me, as I'm sitting on the other end of the camera, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, this is something I want to make sure I prioritize as I'm interacting with people in life, let alone clients, let alone churches, let alone ministry leaders. How do we grow in that? Because that will become a point of differentiation very quickly. It's easier to work with this AI than it is with my creative team. Let's not get to the point where that's a true statement.